All righty. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Sports to Suits Live, where weekly I have the opportunity to highlight former athletes that are absolutely crushing it in business. And we get to learn all sorts of leadership development tips and tricks, sales tips and tricks in this case today, and all sorts of fun things from our former athletes. So this week, I'm super excited to have Kevin Daley on. Kevin, thank you so much for joining.
Thank you so much for having me.
And as you guys are popping in, definitely drop us a comment so that we can engage with you guys, see who's listening in. Tell us where you're listening in from. It's always exciting to hear where everybody is listening in from as well. And while they're doing that, Kevin, why don't you give the audience a little bit of a background about yourself?
Sure, and I'll try to keep it short, okay? Uh, I was originally born in Panama City, Panama, so you can hear an accent every now and then. Came to the United States when I was 13 years old with a dream of playing basketball and just making something out of myself. Eventually, I was able to play high school basketball and played college basketball. Played 2 years at UCLA, 2 years at Azusa Pacific in California. After my college basketball career was over, I started playing basketball professionally. And I played in different leagues in different countries. Eventually, I joined the Harlem Globetrotters and I played with them for 10 years from 2004 to 2014. Had a great career, lots of fun, traveled literally all over the world, but it had to come to an end. And it came to an end, and I joined corporate America, scared, not knowing how good or bad I would be, not knowing anything about corporate America, but I joined, and I am here. I am now.
So why basketball? So what about basketball was fascinating with you even from like a young age?
Yeah. So what I loved about basketball was the fact that you didn't need other people to play basketball with. Now you could play 2-on-2, 3-on-3, 5-on-5, but if no one wanted to play, I could play on my own. So I'll tell you a story. Every Christmas, no, every New Year's Eve, because I made a dream, I made a goal for myself when I was 5, and that goal was to travel all over the world, to play with the best players in the world, and to make basketball my career. So when every New Year's Eve, when everybody was hugging and saying Happy New Year's, I will do the same. But shortly after, I will grab my basketball and I will run to the basketball court and I will yell out, I'm the only one in the world right now that is working on my layup. I'm the only one working on the free throw, on the 3 pointers. So my thought back then was that I was getting ahead of everybody that was partying or sleeping or whatever. While they're doing that, I'm getting better, right? So I'm getting this much better than everyone else. So that's what I liked about basketball, that I could do that. I didn't need anybody else to play with.
Why at 5? Like where is that coming from? I had a former Olympic track and field athlete that signed a contract with his mom at 10. And so like I'm fascinated with like why so young and where does that originate from?
I've tried to pinpoint where did it come from, and I never could find out why. I just knew that I had a goal. Like once I figured out that this is something that I could actually do, and let me tell you this: I was born in Panama, right? Like I mentioned, the country is smaller than the entire state of South Carolina. Small country. We had no plans of moving to the United States. So I made these goals, but I didn't care about how these goals would be accomplished. My entire thought process, which I've carried out throughout my adult life, is to just make sure that I'm prepared for when it happens. I don't know how, and that's not my business. My business is getting ready for when it happens. So at that age, I said, that's what I want to do. And in order for me to get there, I just need to get better. I just need to keep working out. And, it'll happen. So it happened.
So we've got people popping in here. So hey Brett, Brett is joining us from Las Vegas. We've got Jason joining in from Tulsa. He's already submitted all sorts of fun questions that we'll dive
Awesome.
into. We've got Patrick Johnson tuning in. I can't remember where Patrick is from. I think it is also Oklahoma. Not sure on that, but thank you guys for tuning in. So I want to talk about when you guys moved to the United States. What was that like?
Well, it was quite an adjustment.
I bet.
Spanish, yeah, Spanish is my first language. I spoke some English, but not to the level that I am speaking today. So it was an adjustment. Also, it was in LA too, so we didn't move into the best of the areas. So I was introduced to things that I knew nothing about, gang culture and all that, and I didn't know about you couldn't wear this certain color, these fights and riots at school that I can never imagine. Back in I was in private school in Panama, and then I went to the public school system in Los Angeles, and it was just a shock. But I adapted well. I've never had a problem making friends, especially through sports. Anytime you play any type of sports, it's kind of you're most of the time you can adjust to different people, right? Because you're working with different people, playing with different people. So I adjusted well. My English improved. So I started seventh grade, and then in the eighth grade, this was something that happened to me too that was great. I won the award for most likely to succeed, and the teacher, the eighth grade teacher, took me and other students to Pepperdine University. I had never been to any university campus before, but once I was able to see it, then I started saying, okay, this is where I need to go to get to the goal that I want to get to, which I didn't know that was a path. Because again, when I made my goal, I didn't know anything. I just made it. So just stepping foot and being able to see it and now have a visual of it was so helpful for me.
And it exposed you to something that was much greater than what you had seen before, as far as education is concerned, I would assume.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It was just like I didn't know, when you think of college at that age, I think it's a building, right? But it's a whole community, right? In Pepperdine, in all places, it's in Malibu. It's a beautiful, beautiful campus right by the water.
So what did that do for your mindset? Like being exposed to that, like did that flip a switch? Were you like, this is where I'm going to go? And I know you eventually went to play at UCLA. So how did you get from playing high school ball going into college? Like what was the recruiting process like for you?
Well, I wasn't highly recruited, especially in the first few years of high school. I kind of peaked a little bit high school wise. So I transferred into another school. I eventually transferred to Artesia. So we moved from Hawthorne, California, near Inglewood, which is, we all know what type of area that is. But then we moved to Lakewood, which is kind of an upgrade. Still has their own issues, but it was an upgrade. And I went to Artesia High School. At that time, they had some players that had just left, Charles O'Bannon, Ed O'Bannon. They won a championship in 1995 at UCLA. So I was able to see their work ethic because they will always come back and work out with us high school players. So I'm like, wow. So I was able to go to their games and see, how those games were being played and the physicality and how big the players were, which I was like, wow, I don't know how am I going to be able to play with these? But that high school was ran kind of like a college program already. We had sponsors for shoes and clothing. I had none of that coming in from the previous high school. Our James Harden graduated from there afterwards. Jason Capono, 3-point contest winner in the NBA.
I mean, there's so many talented basketball players that come out of that region. I was talking to somebody, Travis Reed, who also played ball at UCLA, who's a former guest of the show. And we were talking about where does all this talent originate from? It's like everybody comes into these schools and they're all so uber talented.
Yes. And I always have a battle I have a friend in New York, and we always battle to see who brings more talent into the NBA and college, New York or LA. Now I'm going to be biased, obviously, but sometimes I show him some receipts. But I think the schools, they built some type of just from the past that they have, some players want to follow that path. Now, I didn't go to Artesia purposely. It just so happened to be the school that was in the district where we moved. It was luck for me, and to me, it was the greatest thing that happened in my career. If I didn't go to Artesia, I probably wouldn't be talking to you today, because that's when the improvement came. And I used to work out with my high school coach literally before school, lunchtime. Then we'll have practice with the whole team. Then I will stay after practice, and then I will come in on Saturday mornings and Sunday mornings as well to work out with him on one-on-ones. So
but you were prepared, and that's what I'm hearing is like you didn't know where these opportunities would come from, how they would fall into place. You knew that they would fall into place, but you were always uber prepared, like over prepared.
I think I was mentally prepared, but I wasn't physically or talent-wise prepared. Although I was working out on my mind, working out, right? But I can't work myself out at that age like a coach can, right? But I was definitely mentally prepared, and I was willing to do whatever it took and sacrifice whatever I had to sacrifice in order to get to where I needed to be.
So what was it like for you stepping foot on the court of your first college ball game?
Oh, it was amazing, uh, because I mean, just to think I've worked this hard to get to this level. Not these many people get to where I am, especially when you start learning the history of the college program too, and then you start saying, man, I owe something to the past players. I owe something to the players that are coming in the future. So I have to do something about it. Now at UCLA, I love the school. I loved every second that I had there. But if I wanted to continue in my career path, I wasn't going to be able to do it at UCLA. They have much more players that were more talented than myself, that were getting a better opportunity than I was getting. So I knew that if I wanted to continue, I couldn't do it from the bench at UCLA. I had to go somewhere else. So eventually, tough decision, especially at that age.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Especially at that age, because at that age, most people are thinking of now, but I was thinking of the future. So eventually, I decided to transfer, and I went to Sousa Pacific. At the time, they were NAIA school.
So there are a lot of student athletes that tune into this show. I get questions and comments all the time from student athletes. So if you were giving any advice to student athletes right now that are going through this process of trying to navigate getting into school and finding their way or finding opportunities that are best for their future, what advice would you give to them?
I would say to be open to different resources and different opportunities that are going to come your way. Don't just set yourself to I'm going to this school, or if I don't go to this school, I have failed, right? College is 4 years, maybe 5 years. Your life after that is so much longer, right? So just go where the best opportunity is for you. And if you have plans to play afterwards, then people have to see you playing. And now, no matter what school you go to, most of these schools are going to give you a good academic education. So absolutely take advantage of that. I didn't take advantage of it until while I was playing. I say this all the time. When I was playing basketball was my major, and I minored in education. Right? Now, 2010, this was 10 years afterwards, while I was playing with the Globetrotters, I decided to go back, and I went and got my degree. But I wish that I would have done it earlier, because it's so tougher once you go back. You know, your mind is not even there, but it's also a lot easier to get better grades because now I was paying for it. So, you know, like then I had a scholarship, but now in 2010, when I decided to go, I'm paying for it. So I'm like, I'm not gonna waste my money. You know, I'm gonna get me some good grades here, but just take advantage of the opportunity that you have today, and just make sure that you're prepared. You always prepare yourself for what's to come next.
So we've got Kenneth popping in saying, I understand all of that. So thanks, Kenneth, for tuning in. We've got all sorts of other people tuning in as well. So thank you for joining. Let's dive into the Globetrotters. So how did you get into professional ball? I know that you played internationally for a little while, but how did you get into the Globetrotters?
So I was playing international, right? Played in the Netherlands, Australia, Taiwan. I mean, you name it, I was there for at least a day.
So what was your favorite place while you were traveling?
Okay, so I've traveled with basketball or not. I've traveled to 101 different countries.
Oh my goodness.
101. My favorites, and then you have favorites for different reasons, but I thoroughly enjoyed my time in Australia. I had 8 months there, and the people were fantastic. The culture, I just loved it. Brazil, I love Brazil too. Just their nature of and it's the Latin background that I come from as well, right? I love the food in Italy. Just absolutely loved it. And it was funny because I had so many teammates that would go to McDonald's, find the nearest McDonald's, no matter where we were. And I'm like, no, 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 no. I don't
You
even
can't
eat.
go to McDonald's in Italy.
Yeah, I'm like, no, I'm going to give me some lasagna or something, right? So I so many great places. But when I every summer I would come back from playing, and I'll be playing in summer pro leagues in Los Angeles, which we had some of the best at the time for professionals. And this particular summer, I was playing with Paul Pierce on my team. So in my mind, I said, you know what? I know that he's attracting a lot of attention. A lot of people are going to come see him play. He was, in the middle of playing with Boston Celtics, so he was hot. So I said, and a lot of people may not know my name when they get to the arena or the gym, but my goal is to make sure that they know my name before I leave. Now, I just want them to know who I am before they leave this gym. So I was playing very well this particular summer, and attracted a lot of attention from different places, different coaches, and the Globetrotters were one of them. And at the time, I felt that was the best fit for me. I think it had the most security. You go overseas, sometimes you have to fight for and a lot of the audience here that played, they know sometimes you have to fight for your check, no matter what's on the contract. What are you going to do? Sue them, right? So I just knew that the Globetrotters would be more security. And I was in a bad place financially. I was literally living in a hotel. The mayor of West Covina, he knew the situation that I was in. So he gave me a hotel. He said, man, there's not much that I can do for you, but here's 2 weeks stay at a Holiday Inn. After that, I'm sorry, man, there's nothing that I can do. So I was 2 days away from having to move out. I'm eating peanut butter and jelly sandwiches every single day for breakfast, lunch, and dinner every single day. Nobody knew this. I don't even know how he found out. I had a $1,500 Cutlass Supreme 1971 card that would take me to all the workouts. I didn't miss any workouts. I didn't miss any games. Peanut butter and jelly was my best friend. And I never worried, though. I never worried. I knew something was going to happen. And then 2 days before I was supposed to move out, I get a call from the Globetrotters. And at the time, they were offering me $100,000. Right. So going from peanut butter and jelly to $100,000, it was a big change. And
well, this is a common misconception. So, it's a common misconception that professional athletes make a ton of money, period. And that is not always the case. More often than not, it is the case that, athletes are struggling financially at times.
A lot of them do. A lot of them do make plenty of money. That was my starting contract. So eventually I made more. And then what happens too, a lot of the players, they don't get paid for the 12 months out of the year, right? They play when they're in season. So if you go play in Spain or whatever for 6 months or whatever that time is, you're getting paid for 6 months, right? So you need to pay for your cost of living during those 6 months, and then also after those 6 months as well. So it's not as big of a check as what it's perceived to be.
How critical is financial literacy at this point? I think that, honestly, there's been a lack of financial literacy opportunities, especially for former athletes, that they're more readily available now than they were, 10 years ago.
Absolutely.
But how critical is it?
I think it's very critical. I think it's first of all, you don't even have to be an athlete to need that type of education. And
everybody needs it.
Absolutely. And I don't think some schools, high schools, they don't teach that. I didn't know anything about credit. I didn't know anything about bank accounts when I left high school. I didn't know anything, right? But I am happy to see that we don't see as many stories of professional athletes just having $100 million and losing it. So you are seeing that these athletes are a whole lot better educated and a lot smarter, are investing their money. You see so many athletes in tech and all kind of different things. So I am very happy to see that.
So what was it like? So the Harlem Globetrotters to me is like the most beautiful combination between sport and entertainment. Yes, sports is definitely entertainment, but when you take the entertainment components that the Harlem Globetrotters offers, it's just such a beautiful combination. So what was it like going from traditional basketball where you're not doing all of these fancy tricks
Yeah.
into, performing?
Yeah, so it was a mindset shift. It was challenging at first because I was still young enough to have that competitive nature in me. My career was still, in a place where I could go play professionally somewhere else. We did have, at that time, we did have spurts of the game where we literally played like for real, right? Nothing, no jokes. Let's just see, who's gonna do what. So I took advantage of that. But my goal was always to let people know that, and when I say people, I mean fans and the audience, to let them know that I chose to do this, that entertainment is second, that I could actually play. So anytime I could I could show that if we played on TV or whatever, I'm going to show these people that I can actually play and that the jokes come later. I didn't know how to spin the ball on my finger when I joined the Harlem Globetrotters. Now I can spin it on my head, So it was tough. It was tough. But what helped me too, because I had never seen a full Harlem Globetrotter game before I actually joined. So I didn't know much of the background. I had to learn while I was there. But what helped me was the impact that we were making on people's lives that I never knew that I will be doing. I'll give you an example. After every game, we'll sign autographs. And I remember a lady asked me to sign her jeans. And I signed it. I interacted with her like I typically would. Nothing special, just the same that I would do with anybody else. That night, she went and wrote me an email and said, "Hey, I have battled cancer 2 times. And the way you treated me, the way that you made me feel, if I die tomorrow, I will die happy." And I can tell you millions of stories very similar. So just once I knew that the impact that I could have on people's lives, I said, this is really where I want to be, because this is way more than just basketball.
It's far greater than just sports.
Yes.
Far greater than just sports. I mean, it's such a beautiful combination, but what you're delivering joy and hope and charisma and all of these beautiful things, as well as having the sport associated to it.
Absolutely.
So we've got some questions popping in. So let's answer one of these questions from Jason. He said, what has helped you not lose sight that your identity is not found in that of being a Harlem Globetrotter, but as a successful individual, leader, and man? That's a great question.
And I appreciate that question, because after retiring, I was very diligent about not putting Harlem Globetrotter in front of everything that I did. I wanted people to know that I'm way more than just a Harlem Globetrotter. Eventually, I embraced it because it's a part of my life that everybody wants to know about. It has opened doors for me. But now, for me to maintain that door open, that's where my leadership skills come in. That's where my integrity, my own personal comes in. The door is open. So now today I embrace it, right? Because I know if anybody finds out, I know they're going to want to ask questions, and I typically know what questions they're going to ask. They're typically the same. So I can't hide from it, and I don't want to hide from it. But I like I said, I appreciate that question, because that was something that I battled with. But eventually I settled down and I started to use it to my advantage. And after using that to my advantage, then I can let people know who I really am, right? Like even in corporate America, that probably got me an interview or two, but that's not going to keep me at the job, right? Because you still have to generate revenue or do whatever it is that your job requires for them. So that's how I deal with it. I embrace it and just insert myself, the Kevin Daley, not the Special K.
So where does the Special K come from?
So it was
So
funny.
I'm curious on, because you got Herb, Flight Time, you've got Special
Yeah.
K. Where do these names originate from?
Well, at the time when I played, you had to earn a nickname. So when I started with the Globetrotters, I was Kevin Daley. Everybody calls me KD. But my first tour, the owner of the team at that time, my first tour was fantastic, by the way. My first tour was Jamaica, Hawaii, Hong Kong, in one more place, I forgot, but it was great. So he came into the locker room at halftime, and I was playing well. Lots of energy. And he said, you know what? This guy right here is doing a lot of special things on the court. As of today, we're going to call him Special K.
So those
And
names are given to you.
at the time, today, it's a little bit different. Today, you're not going to see any player without a nickname. They're going to come in and, all right, this is the nickname we're going to give you. Then you have to earn your nickname.
So I want to talk about this transition from sport to business, because you're crushing it in business and you're doing all sorts of really cool things. And I want to dive into all of those things because I know that we have a bunch of executives that listen in on the show as well. They're always looking for speakers and motivational speakers. So I want to talk a little bit about your career, but let's discuss the transition from the Globetrotters into corporate America.
Yeah, sure. So like I mentioned, I was scared. I didn't know that anybody would take me serious. I didn't know if I had the skills to be successful. But I said, this is what I want to do, and this is what I'm going to do. So I just took the first job that whoever will hire me. And the first job, I was an account manager for a physician staffing company. So I go in the first 6 months, I got the fastest promotion in the company history. Like literally, there's a plaque on the wall with my name on it at the company that says fastest promotion. And then I started to think, what is it that I'm doing that helped me get to this point? And I was literally doing the same thing that I was doing in sports, which is working on my craft, trying to outwork everyone without throwing it in their face, but I'm outworking them when they're at home. I used to come in on Saturday mornings, right? They're at home enjoying everything. And I know they're doing that, but I'm over here polishing up my skills, following up with some clients or whatever, and timing the emails. So when on Monday, these emails all go out, right? So I just started doing, and I had leadership skills. I was the captain of the Globetrotters from the first year that I got there. A few months, I became the captain, and then I was captain for 10 years. So I just started using that. And I always stuck to desire, dedication, and discipline. So I had the desire to be great. I had the discipline and I had the dedication that I put into my craft. So I did that. And then a year and a half, I was to a point where there was nowhere else for me to grow within the company. And that's never a good thing for me. You know,
Same.
right? We work for trophies and knowing that you're elevating yourself. I cannot be stuck in the same plateau, right? So I decided to leave. I just sent out my resume to anywhere that said we need a sales manager. And the company that I'm currently with is 5+ years. They hired me. I was employee 26 or so. Now we are at almost 600, right? And we were making somewhere around a few $1 million in revenue. Now we reach over $1 billion in revenue. And the company's only 8 years old. I've been there for 5 years, right? So it's been like a master's degree for me, because with only 26 employees at the time, you got to wear a lot of hats. I don't care what they bring you in for. And I came in as a sales rep. We were called International Development Advisors. So the company is Velocity Global. And what we do is we help companies expand internationally without the need of them setting up a legal entity in these countries. And we have the capabilities in 187 countries.
Well, and I would imagine your background in being, going to hundreds of, like, how many countries did you say you've been to?
101.
101. That is invaluable knowledge and working for an organization that is doing this type of work.
Yes. So it was extremely helpful. Speaking Spanish was helpful as well. Actually, when I'm talking to someone about a certain country and me being able to say, I've been there. Have you been to this location in there? And they just, oh wow, it's an
It's
instant.
relating to people.
Yes, if you talk to me about Panama, if you tell me you've been to Panama, I'm automatically listening to you, right? Because hey, that's my country, and you are showing some appreciation for my country. So I try to do a lot of that when I met with someone with places that I have been. So that was helpful. Eventually, I've had several roles within the company. I was sales trainer, I was sales manager. Now I'm a senior director of sales, and I manage a group of international development advisors, basically the sales reps. And yeah, it's been fantastic. Our company has been growing ridiculously. So I'm in a good place, and I'm just happy that I'm able to contribute to the company.
Well, and you can also see the growth. This is something so critical for former athletes, like you said, is to continue to have opportunities for growth,
Yes,
development, leadership, not just leading your team, but also having that for yourself as well. And I would assume that you have that with an organization of that size still to this day as you guys continue to grow.
absolutely. And also to be able to create opportunities for others too.
Yep.
What's important to me too. There's people that I'm seeing thrive and that I was the one that made the decision to hire them. Right. So that's a good feeling for me as well. So, and besides that, well, I've written a few books. My autobiography, I wrote it as an outlet. My mom committed suicide when I was 3 years old.
I'm sorry.
So it was very difficult for me to talk about it for 30 plus years until I wrote the autobiography. It's called I Never Stopped Smiling, right? Everything I went through, I never stopped smiling. I always had a smile on my face. And it talks about everything through, Globetrotter years, younger years. And unexpectedly, it won an award for the reader's favorite gold medal award in this category. And I was blown away by that because I didn't write it to sell one book. I just wrote it as an outlet and to help me in my speaking, right? Because I wanted to talk about overcoming adversity. And I said, okay, what's going to give me more credibility? All right, let me write a book. So I wrote a book on that. I also have some leadership books that I've written, and I've been hired by some top companies, Microsoft, um, Northrop Grumman, um, Ashford University, which is where I got my degree. I made the commencement speech a few years ago, and that was incredible. That was incredible, right?
Well, and your reels. So I'm going to put a link. Let me find the banner real quick because so Kevin Daley Speaks. It also has a shop where you can pick up one of the books as well as any of the workbooks that he's talking about. But you've got so much energy and charisma. I mean, these are not like that's the one thing that I absolutely loved about your reels. I have a lot of friends that are speakers, but you have so much energy. Like it's
Yeah,
electric. It truly is. It's amazing what you do.
yeah. I like to show my personality, right? Microsoft, when they hired me, they said, we just needed something different, right? We get these same people with these same PowerPoints. I just want to shake it up and switch it up. And I said, well, you came to the right place. I'm going to deliver you a strong message, but what's most important is it's going to be engaging, right? Because it doesn't matter what the message is if the audience is not engaged, right? And I had some of that training from coming from the Globetrotters and being able to have 10,000 people engage in a Spanish speaking country where my teammates didn't speak Spanish. And I'm the only one literally carrying the entire show with the microphone, all in Spanish. And the whole arena is in tears laughing, right?
So
So
there are so many people that are former athletes that think that they can just walk on a stage and just deliver a presentation. And although that may be the case, what are some things that you do to prepare to deliver a speech to this caliber? Because once again, it is electric, like you are delivering so much energy. So, what do you do to prepare? As well as if there's a former athlete that is listening, or former person in general, like a person in general that wants to deliver messages through speaking, how do they go about doing that?
So let me say this. I was one of those that felt that I can just come in and say, hey, my name is Kevin, Special K Daley, hire me to speak. I was one of those. And I quickly learned that that's not how it was. And that's what forced me to go into corporate America while I crafted that. And, because I had my oldest daughter at that time. And for some reason, I don't know why, but she gets hungry every single day. Right. So because of that, I couldn't just rely on these every now and then speaking engagements. So I went into corporate America. But what I learned is that you have to work on the message. You have to be clear on what is the message that you want to send. Who is the people that can benefit from this? I was trying to be everything for everyone, and that does not work. When somebody will say, hey, you're a speaker, can you come speak? What do you speak about? What do you need me to speak on? That's never the right answer. You have to be, my speaking is about achieving peak performance or leadership, overcoming adversity. Those are my 3 top topics. So you have to sit on that and actually work on that message, have stories on each point that you're going to have. You have to follow a flow. You cannot be all over the place. It cannot be all me, 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 me. It has to be about the audience and what they're getting out of your speech. And always make sure to make whoever is hiring listen to them and deliver and over deliver on what their expectations are.
It's not just about booking a speaking engagement and walking up on the stage and talking.
It's not.
Not at all. And the people that do this really, really well are like so impactful. But there's so many people that are trying to get into speaking, leadership development, coaching. And I see it all the time where people are like, how do I get to speak? And it's like, it's a process, and it's a long process most of the time.
It's a grind. It's a grind, but it's doable. It's very doable.
Yes. So we have Brett asking a question here. He says, I love your attitude, your positive attitude. What is your legacy now, and what do you think it will be in 10 to 20 years from now?
Brett, thank you for that question. I think I've left a legacy behind when it comes to what I've done with the Harlem Globetrotters. That's very well documented, but now it's the future. So now what I pride myself on is getting the people who I manage to the place where they want to be. Getting them to I always tell whoever I bring on my team, I always tell them my success is measured by your success. So I'm going to do everything possible to make sure that you're successful. Because once you're successful, that means I succeeded too. So I make sure that I remove any roadblocks that they have in order for them to make sure that they accomplish what they need to do. And also being available, being able to coach people. That's what I pride myself on. But I think my legacy, what I want my legacy, because you never know what your legacy is going to be. But what I want my legacy to be is that I was a fantastic father to my 2 daughters that I have right now, that I showed them that things can be possible. One of the main reasons why I went back to get a degree was because my thought is I'm teaching my daughter the importance of education. I had an opportunity for free to get an education, and I didn't take full advantage of it. Now, it worked out well for me with the basketball, but I could have done both at the same time, right? So I said, you know what? I'm going to go back to school. So then she can never give me an excuse. She can't say, well, you didn't do it, but I want to show her that you can do it. And it's going to be very difficult because I traveled to 25 different countries in the span that it took me to finish my degree. I was doing homework at halftime. I mean, it was crazy, but I'm glad that it happened that way. So I want my legacy to be exactly that I'm a fantastic father, that I'm a good role model for them and anybody who's looking at me, anybody who has an eye on me. I want to be a good role model for them.
I love that. Okay, we have another one popping in. So we've got, what transferable skill helped you make that transition from being a Harlem Globetrotter to a sales training and development manager?
Jason, that's a great question because I didn't know what those skills were. My wife happens to be in HR, and I remember coming to her and I was down because I'm like, I don't know how I'm gonna get this. Nobody's gonna take me serious. And she said, "Fool, what are you talking about?" She said, first of all, you have leadership skills. You've been the captain just about every team that you played for, and successful teams, right? You know how to work within a team. You know how to get up whenever you fail. You know how to get up. You know how to make goals for yourself and actually hit those goals, right? You know how to communicate with people. So all of these are attributes that most athletes have. I know every athlete, just about every athlete, knows how to work within a team. Most every athlete knows how to work on a common goal, right? The whole team wants to win that league championship, the conference, whatever it is, right? So all of us have these attributes. Some of us are better leaders than others. That's something that can be developed, right? So those were the attributes that I pulled out, and obviously the working hard, working harder and smarter than the next person. Because even in basketball, whenever my coach was given direction on something that one of my teammates did wrong, I was listening. I used to listen because, okay, so now I know I'm not going to do that. I didn't do it yet, but I'm not going to do that. Right. So I did the same thing when it came to corporate America, but it was funny because emails I didn't know anything. So I will save emails from people who I thought wrote a good email, and I will put them in a draft. And whenever I had to send an email, I'll see how they wrote it, and then I'll try to tailor it very similar to that. So I had to do a lot of that until I got my groove. But I don't know if it's fake it till you make it, but maybe that's what it is.
So what didn't transfer?
Oh,
because this is something that I don't ask very often, but you usually put a positive spin on things. Yeah. So I'm going to ask you that question.
I'm gonna be very honest. When the owner and CEO of the company where I'm at right now, he's the one that interviewed me, and I forget what the question was, but I was very honest with how I think it was, I don't remember, but I told him, hey, listen, I had a time when I had a teammate that wasn't doing what he was supposed to do. I got in his face, he yelled back, and I hit him in the mouth. like
you can't do that in corporate America.
You can't transfer that, right? I just think it's the interaction that you would have with your colleagues. It's a whole lot different. I mean, in sports, I can go curse one of my teammates out, and we're going to have dinner afterwards, and they're going to get it together. Just like
it's a totally different culture.
It's a completely different
culture.
Yeah, so I had to adjust to that because I'm so raw and
intense.
Yes, and I'm just me. So you have to kind of tone that down a little bit.
And that's a hard thing for a lot of athletes to do, initially making that, because I struggled with that too, is like the intensity, like you're so disciplined, you're so focused, you're willing to put in the extra effort and energy, sometimes more so than your peers.
Yeah. And expecting that from your colleagues. Now you can expect that from your teammates, like in sports, but you can't expect your colleagues to stay past 5 o'clock. I remember there was a young lady that I worked with, and literally at 5 o'clock on the dot every day, she would sign off. And I was thinking, the type of job that we have, things trickle over for 10 minutes or 15 minutes. But she was doing it every day. And I used to kind of in my mind, kind of criticize her in my mind. But I was saying, okay, but now that we're talking, it's like I can't expect the same in that world as we did in sports.
So why do former athletes make good sales reps?
Because they're not afraid of a no, right? I think most people who are afraid of sales are afraid of no's. Athletes also know how to get up. That big sale didn't go through. Okay, what's next? What's the next game? I remember when I played, the worst thing for me was the in-between time that we had after a loss and then for the next game. If it was college, I didn't want to go anywhere. I don't want to be seen. But in sales, there's a lot of rejections. So you have to be able to have the mental toughness to still smile through some of those rejections. And I think athletes are used to, not every in a league of 30, only one team wins the championship. That means 29 people went home without the goal that they wanted to achieve. So we're able to overcome these rejections.
And tenacity.
Yes.
Tenacity. We have a lighter question from Brett. He says, what percentage of physical condition are you in today versus your peak playing days? Tiger Woods is one of my heroes. And to me, anyone asking me about adversity, I point to him with no words required.
Yes. Yeah. So just Amanda, we were talking a little bit about this. I'm getting ready to film a movie next month that is going to require some basketball from me. So I used to work out. Like when I work out, go to the gym, but then and lift, but no cardio, no basketball, because I said to myself, it's okay to go through these pains when I'm getting paid for it, but now I'm not getting paid for it. I don't want my body to hurt. I don't want my back to hurt. I don't want my knees to hurt. So for the last month and a half, I've been on the basketball gym, sometimes by myself, sometimes with others. What percentage? I mean, I was in such good shape at the time that I can't even compare. I'm probably 40% of what I was in my playing days.
Well, and this is a big problem for a lot of athletes because you can't train your body like you did in that of the sport. Like
Yes.
Time's not there.
Right.
Most of the time your physical well-being, like you just hurt more and you can't stay in that peak performance physically.
And you're getting older too. I mean,
You're older.
You're getting older. I took a long break too. So after you take a break and trying to go back is that much harder. Right. So I do have some aches and pains now, but now I'm about to get paid for it. So I'm okay. Right.
So I do want to ask you, because you have done some TV and film stuff before. I've got to ask the question. I know you get asked this all the time.
Yeah.
But you did a commercial with Michael Jordan. So let's dive into that a little bit because I'm fascinated to hear about this story.
No, absolutely. I did a few commercials with Michael Jordan, but one of them has been tagged as one of the best commercials of all time. Now, if you remember, there was a commercial in 2002 or so that Michael Jordan was playing one-on-one against himself, right? It was the Michael Jordan that was currently at the time playing for the Wizards, playing against a young Michael Jordan from the Bulls. So I played the Michael Jordan from the Bulls. And it took us 3 days to film. And it's funny to hear that 80% of that commercial was us literally playing one-on-one. So
what was that like? I mean, playing the number one basketball player literally in the world. What was that like?
So it was hitting one of the goals that I had, right? Playing with or against the best. So that accomplished that. But once I went to the court day one, and he was on the court, and he said, "How you doing, KD?" And I went crazy in my mind. Wow, Michael Jordan knows my name, right? But tone it down, calm down, compose yourself. How you doing?
Be cool,
Jordan. So then the director comes and he said, "Hey, okay, I want you guys to play one-on-one, and we'll just take shots from there. But one-on-one for real." I'm like, "Wait a minute, you didn't tell me I was going to be playing one-on-one with Michael Jordan." Well, hey, but okay, that's what I want you to do. Then he walked away. Then he came back. "Oh, and by the way, I want you guys to talk trash to each other." And I'm thinking, what can I possibly tell Michael Jordan? But I had to put myself in Michael Jordan's shoes because I'm playing him. So we play one-on-one, and I'll tell you, a few plays in, I'm very timid. I'm very scared. I don't want to play him a certain way because he's still playing. I don't want to be the guy in Sports Center when they say Michael Jordan's career is over because I hurt him. I don't want to be that guy. So
that's a lot of pressure.
Yes. So he goes by me and he dunks on me. And he comes by and say, "Yeah, you didn't think I still had that, young fella. You didn't think I still had it, huh?" And then everybody, director, producers, cameraman, everybody, they're just laughing.
Did that piss you off?
Absolutely. So at that moment, I said, "Oh, wait a minute. Who this dude think he is? Like, no, no. So 3 plays later, I did my thing and I went by him and I dunked it as hard as I probably ever dunked a basketball in my entire life. And the ball went through the rim so hard that it hit him in the face. So I came down the rim and I'm expecting everybody to be laughing and screaming like there were, but it was dead silent. And then he walks up to me and say, "Hey man, don't forget, this is just a commercial." And I was like, "Okay, Mike." But at that point, he saw the competitive nature in me. Obviously, we all know the competitive nature in him. And there was time when the director would say cut, and he would say, "No, no, 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 not right now. I'm teaching. I'm schooling him. No, let's your ball or my ball." And it got very, very competitive.
And there was mutual respect, I would assume.
I think it was. It absolutely was. I think, somebody in that stature, they respect when somebody just doesn't bow down to them. I'll tell you, there was a part in the commercial where we come face to face like this. And I had to literally, I'm this close, literally staring at Michael Jordan, and he's staring at me, literally, right? And I'm thinking, don't look down. Just keep your eyes straight on him, just like he's doing. Just don't look down or look up or look away. And I couldn't do it. He just looked at me, and I could just tell what he was thinking. He was just like, "Yeah, boy, like I'm better than you. I got you." Now it was a few times that my eyes just went down like this, and I just like bring him back up.
What did you learn from that experience?
I learned that he's very competitive, but I also learned that he was able to identify some of my weaknesses quickly, and which is part of the things that I talk about in my presentations when I do talk about that Michael Jordan story, is knowing your competitors' strengths and knowing their weaknesses, but figuring them out quickly too. He was able to figure that out quickly. He was forcing me left, which I'm always stronger with my right. And he was talking and he was telling me what these weaknesses are, trying to get into my mind, right? So I think that was helpful for me too as I went into the next world.
So we have one more question and we're coming up on time, so I want to make sure that we get to it. Which required more dedication, being a Globetrotter or sales and business development manager? Did both maybe require the same kind of dedication, but in a different way? That was in from Jason as well.
Yeah, good question. I think being a Harlem Globetrotter required a whole lot more dedication and commitment. I was in 1 year, I would probably be away for 9 to 10 months out of the year. So couldn't see my family, couldn't see my daughter. I had one daughter at the time. To me, that takes a lot of dedication to be able to do that, right? And I said, part of the reason why I left, I said, if I'm not having as much fun as I had year one, there's no way that I want to be away from my daughter, right? So but yeah, obviously being in sales or whatever industry you're in, it takes some dedication, but it just takes another level of dedication for you to play. And you guys see 2 hours on the court, but you don't see the long bus rides, the long flights, the literally traveling 36 hours and getting to a country and playing the next 5 hours. I've literally went from the plane and walked into an arena with our bags to play a game, because there was 5,000 people there and they don't care what you've been through, right? They don't care. They just want, hey, I came to see a good show and some good basketball. So that takes a whole lot of dedication for sure.
So what's next? You mentioned some film stuff that you've got going on. What's next in your journey?
So I think so the movie is the Jackie Robinson story, but on the basketball side, right? It's the story of the first African American to enter the NBA, which is a story that has to be told. I think the baseball is like 20% or so African American, and we all know that story, right? And in basketball, I think it's 80 to 90% of African Americans, and it wasn't always like that. Somebody had to break through those color lines, and that was Sweetwater Clifton. That happened to be a former Harlem Globetrotter. I'm not playing that role. I'm playing a supporting role to him. But that's going to be a lot of fun. I'm going to. I also want to do more of the speaking that I've already been doing. But this company that I'm at as well, and I have a lot of freedom to move around. If I need a speaking engagement, it's never a problem. I just go do it. But I also want to ride this company and help them get to the next level, because it's been a lot of fun to see the growth and be a part of that growth, and actually have something to do with the growth. So I just want to see how far we can go.
So, what's the best way for people to keep following your journey? Don't give phone numbers. But what's the best way for people to continue to follow your journey and keep up with the things that you've got going on?
Yeah, so social media, obviously, my social media is Mr. Trotter 21, Mr. Trotter 21. It's the same on Instagram. I'm on TikTok a lot. It's been a lot of fun. But and then Facebook too. I post in different places. I post different things. Facebook is mostly family and friends. Also some other people that I really don't know. So it's mostly family oriented stuff, right? Instagram's a little bit more fun. TikTok is even funner than that, right? But yeah, just I'm on Twitter too, but I don't tweet as much. But it's the same handle, Mr. Trotter 21, and that's the best way. But
Well, and definitely if you want to reach out for any speaking opportunities or to check out books, I mean, there's all sorts of really fun stuff on your website. So this is a link to definitely go check it out, kevindailyspeaks.com. And I can't thank you enough for joining. This has been a super fun conversation. I
thank
know
you.
that I've learned so much from you in this hour. Can't
Thank
thank you enough. And to everybody that continues to tune in, thank you so much for joining in. We do these conversations weekly. So typically they're on Tuesdays instead of Thursdays, but we had to be a little bit flexible. And there's always so much to learn from these amazing people. So, Kevin, thank you so much for joining today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been just as much fun for me. Thank you for those that asked questions. I love being in a place where I can share my life, and hopefully it's going to help someone in the long run. And if anybody needs me for any speaking, like you mentioned, one thing that is guaranteed, that I'm going to have your audience engaged.
And check out the reels, because that is so true. I mean, you've got basketballs, you've got so much energy. I mean, it's so much fun.
Awesome.
All righty, everybody. See you next week.